Good morning, everyone. So happy to have you all joining us today. I know I'm excited to have Kessler talk to everyone that's here listening to us. We talked a little bit about finding fossils, and I think Mary put it in the Q&A that she found a fossil on a dig in Israel. We love to hear any questions you have or any feedback that you have. Feel free to put in the Q&A, and we'll definitely get those details or get those questions to Kessler. But like Emily said, we're so thrilled to have you here. Kessler, thank you so much for joining us. I know I'm excited to dig right into the history behind you and just to hear your story. So Kessler, thank you again, once again, for joining everyone this morning.
Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here. Happy to answer questions throughout and talk a little bit about myself. Yeah, I'm happy to get started with whatever you want to know about.
Wonderful. So one of the things that we always dive into is the story behind, your road to your current position. But as a curator, would you share a little bit about your role at the San Diego Natural History Museum, and kind of for those members that maybe haven't heard of the curator of, for the collections manager for paleontology, tell us a little bit about that role.
Of course. So I am the collections manager. I kind of consider myself to be the librarian of the fossils. Some of my roles include managing the physical collection. So as fossils come in, I have to integrate them into the collection. I have to deal with collections growth, collection organization, making sure that everything is in its proper place and that it's well organized. I also manage the data that's associated with all of these fossils. So as data comes in, we have a field database. Then once they're cataloged into the main paleontology database, I manage all that data. And then that data is served out to our online search portal, which is available through our department website. I also, in addition to working with specimens and data, I also work with researchers, which I'm very fortunate to do. Our collection is a research collection. We have people visiting it both live and virtually. And so I work with those researchers. I help them with any needs they have, get them data, answer any questions about the specimens, help them when they're here getting access to the specimens, help them with equipment, just try to make their time here as productive as possible. And then I also oversee our 3D modeling program. We started a few years ago doing what's called photogrammetry, where we image specimens in 3 dimensions. And that data is available through our department website as well. And that's a very exciting and fun program. So I help manage that as well.
Wow, that's a big one. And I definitely feel like I've done this to all of our collections managers. I always refer to them as our curators as well, because the wealth of knowledge that you have and everything that the disciplines that you bring with you to your role as a collection manager is just a wealth of knowledge. So that's amazing to hear your role. But with that, what is the story behind your road to the San Diego Natural History Museum? What was it for any future paleontologists that may be listening to us, or for anyone that's out there that's interested in becoming the collections manager for a paleontology department? What was it like? How did you get to where you're at?
Well, first of all, I feel very fortunate to be in the role I'm in. I love my job, and I thank the universe every day for allowing me to do this job, come to work and be here. Yeah, it's been a kind of long, interesting road. I'm sure, like a lot of people that start out in college, they may go in one major, and they may decide when they, throughout college, they are interested in something else. That's kind of happened to me. I mean, I was always interested as a little kid, exploring the natural world, going to museums, looking at fossils on display, out hiking and those kinds of things. But actually in high school and then beginning in college, I was interested in history, politics, current events, things like that. I started as a history major. It's 18, not quite sure what I want to do. And I ended up taking some classes in college, in the sciences and the natural sciences. I started getting more interested in that, and getting more interested in the environment, environmental issues. And so I ended up deciding to change my major to more environmental focus. So I changed to a geography earth science program with an emphasis in geology, and started taking geology classes, and just really got me interested. Started doing better in school, and it wasn't becoming work, it was becoming exciting, and I was really interested in the subject, going out on field trips and learning about geology, looking at minerals. And so I ended up, graduating, and I had a historical geology class, one of my senior year in college. And historical geology talks about the history of the earth and introduces fossils and history of life. And the professor said that, this is at the time I was living in Pennsylvania, the professor said a local museum at the state capitol in Harrisburg was looking for people to come and volunteer. And so I decided to volunteer on the weekends doing fossil preparation. They had this demo lab, kind of like we have here at the museum. And I was volunteering there, and ended up getting an internship and a full-time position there, which was really wonderful. And then I ended up seeing some opportunities out here in California at this museum. And so I was able to come out here and take a position out here at this museum, which has been really wonderful. I ended up getting my master's degree at San Diego State in geology, and studied Pleistocene ice age fossils, and just preparing myself academically to be a collections manager here at the museum. So I would say anyone who's interested in doing collections management in paleontology should probably have a degree either in biology or geology, maybe with a minor in the other. Probably need an advanced degree, at least a master's degree, and be someone who's, I think, very organized and neat. I'm kind of a neat freak, place for everything in its place, kind of a thing. And just obviously have a passion for paleontology and geology.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And I love hearing people's stories behind, their road to the current position. And you mentioned a couple different things that stood out as far as, events that maybe helped you guide your thinking and your excitement and the passion that you have for this department. But was there a major significant life event that maybe triggered you to say, wow, yes, I want to dedicate my life to this. I want to focus on whether it was the environment or the history class that you took, or was there other significant life event that occurred in your life that really light bulb moment went off?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably all had this when we were in college, undergraduate. You're going through your classes, and I had a class, physical geology. We're going on field trips. We're looking at rocks. We're looking at minerals. We're identifying them. That to me was just so exciting. Understanding the different types of rocks, how they go, how minerals make up rocks, how minerals are formed, how rocks are formed. And had a really great physical geology professor. You had that, sometimes you had that one professor that just like you say, like a light bulb goes off. You're like, this is such an exciting topic. I have endless energy to study it. And that's how it was for me, especially making that connection with what we're doing in the lab, in the classroom, with the real world, going out and looking at exposures, looking at mountains, understanding how they're formed. It all just kind of clicked for me. So I think academically, that was kind of that moment. And then my first job at the State Museum of Pennsylvania, just getting introduced to paleontology in a museum setting, and organizing fossils and identifying fossils and getting them ready for people to use and help us better understand the natural history of this planet. I loved everything. I've always been very organized, and I was just like, I love this. I want to do this the rest of my life. And so once I had that moment, I was like, everything from now on is going to be aimed at that goal.
That's great. I loved hearing how you focused it on the endless energy to study, like endless energy to have this. And I could definitely see that energy, and I could see your excitement for paleontology, and I could see the passion that you have for the work that you do. But I can't like just let this moment pass by without seeing into the background, Kesler. I see that you have some drawers open. I see. Are we in your office right now, and are we in the collection itself? And can you tell us a little bit about what's back there?
Yeah, this is not a Zoom background, fake background. This is my office. So Yeah, I fortunately have my office in one of our collections rooms. We have a main collection room, and this is what we call the annex. And this is where I work. It's very quiet in here. And I feel like I am kind of the protector of the collection a little bit. So I feel like I'm here guarding the door, making sure no one's coming in and damaging in the collection. But yeah, so behind me are our collection cabinets. They're sort of a state-of-the-art cabinet with good seals and can hold heavy fossils. And I've opened up one of the cabinet doors, and you can see white drawers in there. At the very bottom, I've pulled out a drawer, and there's a collection of Eocene fossils. These are maybe 42, 43 million year old vertebrate fossils that are in that drawer. So yeah, it's a great spot for me. I get energy off the research potential of this collection. So it kind of pumps me up to be sitting here.
No, I could see that. I would definitely get pumped up, and I would get excited to work, knowing that there's that much history behind me, literally behind you, and the work that you do. So, like, can you share a little bit about the value behind the collection? So I know you mentioned it helps with the research, and it helps with people that are studying, whether they're in their graduate classes or undergrad, to experience the different specimens that we do have. But one of the things that we always love hearing from our collections managers is the value behind having a collection. And is there anything new that's happening with collections, whether it's digitizing or if it's something that, you know, that's groundbreaking or something that new that we haven't done in the past?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot going on right now in our department. We just made a very exciting discovery last summer. We were on a Caltrans project close to the border with Mexico, and we discovered a fossil bone bed. And this was a rock unit that we thought was mapped at about 28, or it was mapped as the Otay Formation, which is about 28 million years old. We started getting out fossils that were not from this 28 million year old assemblage that we know of down there. These were different fossils. So we started studying them once they got back in the lab. It turns out they're much younger. They're maybe about 15 million years old. It's a completely new set of animals that have never been known from San Diego before. And it's a completely new rock unit that we've never really encountered before in San Diego. So to being our department studying the geology in the paleontologist area, you know, for decades, and we think we know the rocks very well. All of a sudden, we have this brand new unit, new to science, new animals that we've never known about from this region. So that's really pretty exciting. So we've been quite a buzz about that. I've been working with researchers, been using this 3D modeling program I mentioned to you before. We can image specimens. I can talk with my colleagues all over the world to help us identify what these animals are and get us a better idea of maybe what, you know, really narrow down the age of this rock unit.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's so fascinating, that you can work with colleagues from pretty much anywhere, especially nowadays, that you can share a 3D image and, you know, almost take them physically or virtually into that specimen and, you know, move it around and see what it's like. With that, is there any specific, you know, story or specimen that you have? Say you were to take us behind the scenes, or say you were to take a group of people behind the scenes into the collection. Is there one specimen or one story that you cannot let anyone leave the collections without sharing? And if so, you know, what would that be?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you ask that. I do. I sometimes it's hard for me to do a very short tour because there's so many exciting things. There's sometimes two things I actually show them. There's like one of my kind of favorite fossils in the department.
Oh, yes,
So I
favorite
was going
fossil.
to show that to you. And talking about technology with COVID, right here, this technology that we're doing is so wonderful, someone like myself. So I can take a specimen, like I'm going to do in a second, and I can hold up to the camera. I can talk to anyone in the world, and we can talk about a specimen, as opposed to before sending pictures and emails on the phone. And this is just so much better. So this is a specimen that was collected in Chula Vista about 20 years ago from a rock unit called the San Diego Formation, which is about 3 to 4 million years old. This rock unit is typically a marine rock unit. We get shells, we get whales, we get seals, but occasionally we get animals that live on the land washing out into this unit, or maybe get a small lens of terrestrial deposits. So we have a number of interesting animals, horses and camels and things like that. But this is an extremely rare specimen that was found in this marine rock unit. I don't know if you can see that,
Yeah.
how well you can see that. It is a skull of an extinct giant bobcat called Felis rex rhodensis. So this is a large bobcat. Anatomically, it's probably very similar to your house cat at home. But one of the most exciting things about this, well, one, it's a carnivore, which are usually very rare in the fossil record. We don't see carnivores, but to find a skull this well preserved is quite amazing. But when I flip it over, I don't know how well you can see, but the teeth are preserved inside this skull. These little carnassial sharp teeth that if you guys have cats and you've been bitten by them, or you open their mouth when they chew their meat, the teeth are preserved in the skull. It's just absolutely spectacular specimen. Extremely rare. This is the only one we have in the collection. So I usually show off that one because I'm really very excited. Another collection that I sometimes show off is something that was found downtown. I was able to be on and collect. This was maybe 10 years or so ago. We were excavating for the Thomas Jefferson School of Law, 30-foot deep excavation. And we encountered, we were in Pleistocene rock units that were maybe 500,000 years old. And it was showing a really interesting sequence of rocks. The most exciting thing we found on that project was a mammoth skull and partial skeleton. But it was sitting on a shell bed. So you have a large land mammal that was sitting on a shell bed. A number of different units. And below that, we had a partial gray whale skeleton, an ancestral extinct gray whale. And we found horse teeth in that site as well. So over this 30 feet of stratigraphic section, we had marine and non-marine rocks in these sort of alternating patterns. And I show this a lot when I have visitors from the collection because it's so exciting to think about changing sea level on a single spot and to have not only the sediments, but also the changing environments and changing animals in those areas. It just helps you understand, we're by the coast and how sea level is changing and how the sediments are responding to that. It's really pretty fun to show people.
Yeah, well, I thank you so much for sharing your two most favorite specimens that you would like to that you show off or talk of, because I could definitely see that we could spend hours. I could listen to you more. I don't know about the rest of the members that were sitting in here, but I was on the edge of my seat trying to get as close to the screen as possible, trying to reach out and see if I could feel those teeth that you were talking about, because I think, yeah, you're right. It is something important and it's something that's unique. So thank you so much for sharing that and bringing that to the screens for everyone here. So you mentioned a few different specimens, and you mentioned a few different paleontology field participation that you've done. Was there the most or a story behind your first field discovery or field experience, or was that one the downtown your first field experience? I'm sure you've had plenty.
Yeah, I actually, because of my role, probably listening to me, I do a lot of office work, which I enjoy. I like working with data, working with specimens. Occasionally, I do get in the field. Sometimes if we have a large discovery that we just don't have enough staff in the field to handle, I sometimes come out and help dig and put plaster jackets on and get my hands dirty. But early on, some of my first years here at the museum, there was a discovery in Oceanside in Pleistocene sediments. So these are probably 100 to 200,000 year old sediments. Particularly exciting for me because what I studied in grad school was this age deposit and some of these aged animals. But there was a discovery. It was a housing development called Wannesview Estates, a little north of Oceanside Boulevard. And they discovered, the field paleontologists discovered a horizon on this kind of like a pond mud deposit. We found two different proboscidean skeletons. So proboscideans are large animals that have tusks and a trunk like a modern elephant. We found a partial skeleton of a mammoth and a partial skeleton of a mastodon. In the same horizon, they were maybe 100 feet or so apart. So they were probably actually living at the same time. So they needed some of us from the lab, the office, to come out and help dig. And this was such an exciting discovery. We were mapping out where all the bones were on grids so that we're preserving all the arrangement of the bones and all that data. We were uncovering other kinds of fossils, not just these mammoths and mastodons. It was a whole suite of terrestrial animals. There were tapirs living in San Diego at this time. I actually brought a tooth of one of the tapirs that we found there. Of course, tapirs are known for living in South America right now, not known living in North America, but we had tapirs living there. This is a pond deposit, so we had pond turtles living there. I brought a fossil of a pond turtle. It's kind of a pancaked pond turtle. You imagine the two shells of a turtle kind of getting squished. Yeah. Inside this, there were the bones of this turtle, which are pretty rare too, to find bones. Normally we just find pieces of the shell, but we actually found the bones. So amazing discovery, a suite of animals. We found some horses, we found bison, micro, small rodent teeth we processed back in the lab. So I think that was back in like maybe 2000 or maybe 2002. So I'd only been to the museum a couple of years. So that still in my mind was one of the most fun, exciting projects to be on.
Wow. That sounds exciting, and thank you so much for showing us those fossils. To make that story almost come to life. With the last question that I want to get into, because there's so many questions that I have that you just brought into my head, and I want to talk more about. But is there a wish list that you have for the paleontology department as a collections manager? Is there something that you're dying to have in the collections?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone, you could ask everyone in the department, they probably have a different wish list, particularly the curator, Tom Demery, has the things he'd like. There's a few things that I think would be really fun to find that we haven't found yet. One, talking about all these ice age deposits. We have some ground sloth fossils. These are animals that are extinct related to modern tree sloths. We have some sloth fossils. We do not have a skull of a sloth. With a potential, I think, for 3 different species of sloths here in San Diego. We have not yet found a skull, and I would really love to find a skull of one of these ground sloths. I think it'd be really, really cool. The other thing that I think would be really fun is in our Eocene, like the fossils behind me, we have a suite of animals. We have primates, we have rhinos, we have extinct artiodactyls called oreodonts, all these great things. But we have never found camels in our Eocene rocks, and they should be here. They're known from other rock units of this time here in North America. We have them from other younger rocks here in San Diego. Camels evolved here in North America. And we should have them this time period. We have not seen that. It'd be really cool to find a camel. And then the last thing that would be kind of a stretch, but I think it's out there, is we do have Cretaceous rocks here in San Diego coastal and a little bit inland in Carlsbad. We mostly find marine invertebrates like big ammonites, but we do find some dinosaurs that floated out and died and sank to the bottom. But it would be really cool to find some mammals, some Cretaceous mammals in these rocks. The way we'd probably do that is we're washing some of the rock matrix, and maybe we had just a couple of mammals wash out there in a fine grained unit, and that would be very, very exciting to compare Cretaceous mammals here in San Diego to other areas like the Four Corner States and Wyoming and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, if we ever do find those fossils, Kesler, I can't wait to share those with everyone here and have, because I can see the excitement of you talking about your wish list, and I would love to hear your excitement of when it actually happens, or if it does happen. So if it does, we'll be sure to share that with all of our members here. But believe it or not, Kesler, we are at the end of our time. Emily's already on our headset saying, okay, Hector, 2 minutes, let's go, let's start wrapping this up. Okay. There's so many questions that I could dive into, but thank you so much, Kesler, for joining us today. I enjoyed every minute of your time, and thank you again for sharing all those fossil specimens with us today. We're going to turn it back over to Emily now, because she has some great updates and reminders to share with everyone here. Thanks again, Kesler.
Welcome.